A UN document seen by the BBC says the Taliban are intensifying their hunt for people who worked for NATO and US forces. It warns the militants are arresting or threatening family members of targets unless they surrender themselves. The US says it's evacuated 7,000 people from Kabul in the 5 days since the Taliban takeover. As people scramble to leave the country, the UN Refugee Agency warns of a looming humanitarian crisis. There's mounting anger in Haiti as aid agencies are struggling to reach some of the worst affected areas hit by the earthquake on Saturday. Over 2,000 people were killed in the earthquake. And the authorities in Washington, D.C. have arrested a man who threatened to detonate a bomb near the US Capitol. Police say they did not know what the man's motives were.
In Afghanistan, confusion continues outside Kabul's international airport as thousands try to flee the country after the Taliban takeover. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin says American forces will continue to evacuate as many people as possible from the airport in Kabul. Australia reports its biggest ever one-day rise in COVID-19 infections as an outbreak of the Delta variant continues to spread. And more than 1,000 firefighters near the French Riviera work to control a fire that has forced thousands to leave the area.
Meanwhile, Afghans trying to flee the country are being turned back by Taliban fighters outside the airport. Now the State Department and military say they cannot guarantee safe passage to that airport for Americans. Senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell is in Kabul with the latest.
This morning, anguish and agony as 15,000 Americans and many more Afghans try to escape Kabul. Reports of more than a dozen injured in the crush at the airport, the Taliban beating the crowds. Fighters firing multiple rifle shots in the air to frighten and disperse people. And right by the Taliban checkpoint there, a tense moment.
Taliban permission.
ABC News.
Okay.
At first, the fighters backed away. Then more Taliban appeared.
Tell him we have permission. We have permission.
Walid.
Yes, ABC.
Ignoring the accreditation issued by their own commanders.
We have Taliban permission.
As gunfire erupted again in the background, with their weapons drawn, we were forced back into the cars.
Stop filming. Just put it down.
Inside the airport, it's secure and calm, but just yards away, a completely different picture. New images from the Air Force showing the evacuations, including this image of an Afghan child with an airman's uniform for a blanket. So far, there have been nearly 6,000 evacuations, but some flights leaving half empty because many people can't get to the airport because it's unsafe.
I don't have the capability to go out and extend operations currently into Kabul.
Questions remain about how the country fell so quickly.
There was nothing that I or anyone else saw that indicated a collapse of this army and this government in 11 days.
The Taliban assuring us women's rights would be protected, but on the ground the evidence is the opposite. This female news anchor blocked from going to work. Shabnam Dawan told by the Taliban the regime has changed, go home. Journalist Zara Nabi says women who lived under the Taliban last time are now terrified. She says her neighbor is devastated.
I was trying, 10 minutes I was trying to make her understand, calm down, please. The Taliban won't do these things again. And she was saying, no, I cannot.
And Ian Pannell joins me live now from Kabul with more. Ian, those stories are heartbreaking. What are you seeing there in Kabul now? Have things calmed down at all?
Listen, Diane, I'd love to be able to say that they have, but that's really just not what we're hearing at the moment. I mean, the truth is the Taliban are giving lip service to controlling the situation, to facilitating the departure, the safe departure of Afghans, of Americans. But the reality on the ground is they still haven't quite got control of the situation. Right down there by the airport, it is chaotic. That means a lot of people are going there. They're risking their lives just to even get to the gate. We spoke to one woman. She'd worked with the US-led mission. She had the right papers. She waited all night. We got a message from her about 8:30 in the morning saying that was it. She had to give up and go home. But she's now gone back there. Still the same situation. People are getting through, just not enough. The systems need to be put in place to make this happen.
And Ian, is anyone there openly resisting Taliban rule?
Yes, I mean, we've actually seen a protest here in Kabul today and in other parts of the country. There's small-scale people waving the Afghan flag, or the flag of the government that's just been overthrown. It is Afghan Independence Day, so that's why a lot of people are out. But we're also seeing at least one group offering as an armed resistance, setting up in the Panjshir Valley just north of here. But it's hard to see. The Taliban are so strong, anyone militarily taking them on. But it shows that there is at least popular opposition.
All right, Ian Pannell in Kabul. Stay safe, Ian. Thank you.
We start with the coronavirus situation in Japan. On Thursday, the number of confirmed new cases in a single day topped 25,000 for the first time. An infected woman who was isolating at home gave birth prematurely. The baby died as medical services were overwhelmed. The woman lives in Chiba Prefecture near Tokyo. Local health officials said she's in her 30s and was 8 months pregnant. They say she reported bleeding and abdominal pain on Tuesday. Her obstetrician and local health center officials looked for a hospital to take her, but could not find one. Her premature baby was taken to a hospital for emergency treatment, but died. The mother is now in a hospital.
The number of doctors and medical institutions that can handle both coronavirus infections and obstetric treatment is limited. The number of obstetricians who can deal with pregnant women at risk is even smaller.
22 prefectures reported record high coronavirus cases on Thursday. 1,765 patients are seriously ill. The number has marked a record high for 7 straight days. Prefectures with record high cases include Okinawa. The local medical association has asked people not to get together with relatives during a festival period that begins on Friday. Tokyo has confirmed 5,534 new cases. That's the second highest daily total reported here. Meanwhile, the Tokyo metropolitan government is holding firm on a plan to let tens of thousands of school children attend the Paralympics despite growing opposition. All 4 members of a Tokyo Education Board meeting on Wednesday objected. They pointed to the surge in coronavirus cases and the severe strain placed on the medical system. Spectators are banned in principle from the Paralympics. The central government's top expert on the pandemic says children should not be the exception.
Considering the fact that the coronavirus situation is much worse than when the Olympics began in late July, the outcome of any debate about spectators should be obvious.
Tokyo Governor Koike Yuriko thinks otherwise.
We will make preparations so that children can watch the Paralympians compete in a safe, secure manner.
Metropolitan government officials say up to 140,000 students are expected to attend. The Paralympics begin August 24th. Now to the coronavirus response in the United States. The Biden administration has revealed plans to offer vaccine booster shots to people who've received 2 doses. The Department of Health and Human Services issued a statement saying vaccines remain effective at reducing the risk of severe disease, but it says booster shots will be needed to maximize and prolong vaccine-induced protection. The statement says they'll be offered beginning the week of September 20th and starting 8 months after an individual's second dose. It says the first people eligible will include healthcare providers and seniors. The U.S. government's position on booster shots does not appear to be shared by the World Health Organization's chief scientist, Soumya Swaminathan. She said data does not indicate they're necessary for everyone. The WHO has urged governments not to administer booster shots until at least the end of September in order to promote vaccine rollouts in developing countries. Here in Japan, the vaccine minister Kono Taro told lawmakers the government is preparing to offer a 3rd shot to medical workers if the health ministry decides it's necessary. We turn now to Afghanistan. There's growing concern the Taliban might restrict the rights of women. Now, a female news anchor for the state broadcaster says they've blocked her from doing her job. In video on Twitter, the woman said the Taliban barred her, but not her male colleagues.
Taliban told me that the administration has changed hands and I cannot work. My life is in danger. People around the world, please help me.
The Taliban were previously in control until 20 years ago. They barred women from employment and education in line with strict interpretations of Islam. Since the group took power again, they've stated they'll take a softer stance toward human rights, including the rights of women. They appear to be trying to ease concern among Afghans and the international community. The Taliban are preparing to establish a new government. They're holding talks with past leaders, including former President Hamid Karzai. Senior Taliban official Wahidullah Hashimi told the Reuters news agency on Tuesday that Afghanistan will not have a democratic system.
The system of the government is clear. That is an Islamic government. Sharia law would be, of course, there would be no democratic system at all, because it doesn't have any base in our country.
He said the country may be governed by a ruling council, while Supreme Leader Hebatullah Akhundzada would likely play a role above the head of the council. People living in Kabul say female news anchors at the state-run broadcaster have been replaced by men. They also say there's more religious programming and less entertainment. Authorities in Haiti have confirmed more deaths from the magnitude 7.2 earthquake that struck last Saturday. They say more than 2,100 people are dead and many still missing. Haitian officials said Wednesday that over 12,000 people were injured. The healthcare system is overwhelmed. This hospital put chairs and makeshift beds in corridors.
I fell and fainted. When I woke up, I was in the hospital.
Government officials say the quake toppled buildings across wide areas and that many people are likely trapped under rubble. They say search and rescue operations have been hampered by rain and landslides, and they say some regions are not receiving enough relief supplies. Lawyers in South Korea say a district court has approved the seizure of payments Japanese firm Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is supposed to receive. The move is aimed at using the funds to compensate South Koreans over wartime labor. South Korean plaintiffs say they or their relatives were forced to work for the company under harsh conditions during World War II. On Wednesday, their lawyers said the court has allowed the seizure and collection of a South Korean firm's payments to Mitsubishi Heavy, totaling about $720,000. The South Korean firm says the payments aren't for Mitsubishi Heavy itself, but one of its group companies. Still, the lawyers say they aim to confirm the validity of the court's decision. Mitsubishi Heavy was ordered to pay the compensation by South Korea's top court in 2018. Japan's position is that any right to claims was settled completely and finally in 1965, when Japan and South Korea normalized ties.
The rulings on wartime labor by South Korea's top court and related judiciary steps clearly violate international law.
Kato says the liquidation of Japanese firms' assets for compensation would create a very serious situation regarding Japan-South Korea ties. He's urging Seoul to come up with a swift and acceptable solution. Those were the main stories for this hour.